Kacy Paide of theinspiredoffice.com, coming to you today from my own family room to answer a question I get asked a lot, which is how do you organize somebody else's stuff? Or how do you help somebody organize who's maybe not as invested in the project as you are? So I'm going to teach you one of many, many, many ways. There's many ways to answer that question as there are people in the world. So I can really only, in this case, actually speak from personal experience. And I'm going to do that by organizing some of my husband's things here. Specifically, papers from a house purchase of his. He used to own a house in Portland, Oregon, actually 10 years ago or so, that he sold forever ago. And he's been carrying these settlement documents and home documents around with him forever and ever. But I'll back up first before we dig into this, and I show you how I'm going to kind of organize it for him. I'm going to tell you that we have a crawl space upstairs where we have a fair number of things. They're pretty organized, but I'm always looking to pare it down. And he moved in with me 2-3 years ago, and there were some things that still weren't as organized as I wanted of his that landed up there. So you can imagine, as a professional organizer, I'm always asking him, when are we going to go through those things? When are we going to go through those things? They were his papers, his school notes, his photographs, notebooks, you name it. And he always said, well, one day, or not on my day off, or any day but today, or let's set a date next weekend, and it never happened. So I did something that you may be able to do with your loved one or for your loved one, and you may not, but hopefully it will give you some ideas. In his case, I knew that if I were to take it upon myself and start digging in and pulling those things out and organizing them, that it would be okay. I knew I wasn't going to be in trouble. If you suspect you might be in trouble, or you might lose all respect or trust with that person, then this isn't for you. But, so a couple years after he moved in, I was able to pull those things out, and I didn't do it with any bitterness or anger. He was down here on the couch, and I thought, I want to dig in. I'm going to take it upon myself to start this process. So he heard me rummaging around up there, and he asked, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going through your stuff from the crawl space. He's like, oh, strange that you want to do that, but okay. And then I started calling down with some questions. I said, hey, you've got this, there's a padlock in here that I don't think is memorabilia. Why is this here? And he said, oh, it's trash, get rid of it. And I had a couple more questions like that. And then he actually came upstairs and started organizing with me, which was really exciting because even though I know him, there's always a chance that that person, that loved one that you're organizing with and organizing for isn't going to take it as well as you want. But just by nature of me pulling it out and starting myself, he was intrigued, and everything was out in the open and sort of pre-sorted. And together we went through it for about 15 minutes, and he was able to get rid of a lot, and we took 3 bins down to 2 bins, and it worked. Hopefully in your case it could work that well. Here's something that we were left with. These are his closing papers for the house. And neither of us were really in the mood to go through it. He suspects that a lot of this is trash, but it's been sitting downstairs for a couple weeks ever since we started the project, and I am going to take it upon myself to do a pre-sort. So this is something that I've walked a fair number of clients through, because in many cases I'm working with somebody who has a partner, and we come across the partner's, spouse's, boyfriend's things, and in a lot of cases we just have to leave it be because they suspect that that's the best thing to do. But if they know that the person just needs a little nudge, somebody to break the ice, what we do is I start taking things, and I do the same thing when I'm, for whatever reason, organizing not side by side with my client. If I know my client's not at home, or they stepped out, or I have an hour to myself, I will set things out such as probably trash. 99% sure this is trash. Questions, things I have no idea about, things I'm fairly certain you should keep, and I want you to give me the okay on everything that we're going to trash, and everything that we're going to keep, and then we'll talk about where to keep those things. So then instead of the person or loved one, or in my case client, coming back and or just dealing with something like this, I like to think of it as spoon feeding. You're spoon feeding them these small little projects, and instead of saying just organize this, it's, hey, I would never throw anything away without your permission, but here's a pile of things that are probably trash. I just want your eyes on all of this before it goes out. Or, hey, I have no idea what these are, but if you just give me some background, then together we can figure out if they stay or if they go. Or the last pile is, I'm pretty certain you want to keep these. And in some cases they will, and in some cases they'll say, oh, I get why this looks really important to you, but it's absolutely trash. So I have not cracked into this before today, but I'm really happy to get this to disappear. It's been sitting out in our living room for weeks. I suspect I'm going to come up with the same categories for him, and I'm just going to dig into it right now. I'm curious to see how long it's going to take. I don't think it's going to take me more than 5-10 minutes, so I'll report back to you on how long it actually took. So I think that took about 5-7 minutes max, and it was actually pretty straightforward. I don't have as many categories as I expected. All I have is a keep question mark category, of which contains something that may be the deed. I'm not sure, but in going through papers like this, this home was bought 15 years ago and sold probably 13 years ago. It's nice to have something that was just proof that you owned it. Don't take my word, and I won't get too far into the bushes on what you need to keep or not pertaining to real estate. It's not so much about the context of this being a real estate sorting project as it is sorting for somebody else. But in this case, I think it would make sense just to keep something that's proof that he owned the house. And then just a couple of things. The appraisal has some photos. Comps, probably doesn't need that. These are more for nostalgia's sake. This is, I guess, the plat. I don't know. I don't have all my technical terms down. But where he is, where he was in the neighborhood in Southwest Portland. So what I'm going to do is run this by him. I'm curious to know if at all he wants to keep any of that. But the keep pile is very, very, very small. Pretty much everything I'm almost certain is trash. When sorting, so this just says toss, question mark. When sorting for somebody else, when doing a pre-sort like this, that you want to, again, kind of pre-package and hand off, spoon-feeding style, it's nice when you can actually not disrupt things too much and let people know from exactly where you took something. So again, I think this whole pile is trash, but I wanted him to know that all of this that I think is trash came from this folder. Just, again, so he has context, so he knows that these were, once upon a time, bundled together for some reason. And all of this was just kind of loosey-goosey stuffed in that case, and he's just going to have to go through it. So that's exactly what we're going to do now, and then I'm going to report back to you to see how I did. The verdict is in, and I did great. This was not my first rodeo. So Nick just came in and he looked at all of this for about a minute, and I went over. He said, yes, indeed, this is the deed, and he wants to keep it. This is the MLS listing, the neighborhood, plot, whatever. The appraisal, he's going to keep those for nostalgia's sake. All of this can go. He said, I trust you completely. All of it can go. And so this is to say, remember how full and junky this thing was? With about 7 minutes of my own sorting and a minute of Nick's time, we were able to get it down to just this. All of this, I'm going to go through next and figure out what can just be recycled and what can be shredded. In our case, it's winter, we have fires almost every night, and instead of shredding, we just burn things in the fireplace. So this was quite a success, and I hope this gives you some ideas for how to pre-sort and nudge a loved one into getting organized. Again, you really have to know You have to know your client, even if your client's a family member. I'm not at all encouraging you to sort of test boundaries and go really hard at somebody who's not ready for this. But if you have somebody who's ready and able, and somewhat willing, but you notice that the project simply never, ever, ever gets done, then you guys may be a good candidate for organizing this way. So to recap, you have to know that the person is kind of going to be open to you going through their things. And the second thing is to do the pre-sort in such a simple way, and you can apply this to clothes, you can apply this to kitchen stuff or anything, but give them piles such as probably keep, probably trash, probably keep but maybe not in this room or not in this category. And then from there you have 3 to 5 very simple projects that the two of you can sort of discuss rationally once maybe you've done the dirty work behind the scenes. This is something that I do a lot, and again, it's always done with great success because we know we're doing it for somebody who's kind of given us the green light to start the process. Again, I'm Kacy Paide. I'm here in Silver Spring, Maryland. I, of course, work locally in DC, Maryland, Virginia, but I also work nationwide, both virtually and I get in the plane and fly to people a few times a year to organize. For the most part, I specialize in paper and offices, which is why I have so much fun doing something that's so mundane and dry and boring to so many of you. So please leave a comment if this is helpful. If you have any other ideas or ways you've helped a loved one get organized, please share in the comments. And also please visit my blog on theinspiredoffice.com for many, many more tips and ideas like this. Thank you so much.